there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 1 of the anime series Shingeki no Bahamut Genesis. And I gotta say, I thoroughly enjoyed this first episode. I really knew nothing about it going into it, other than the fact that it was loosely based on a card game of sorts, but it completely and thoroughly rocked my world by the end, and I'm on board, not least of which because between the character dynamics and the characters themselves, the story, and all those kinds of elements coming together, it really felt like a modern incarnation of anime classics along the lines of Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo, and even more modern series like Shingeki no Kyojin, things like Trigun, and also, had sort of tropes that very much related to my mind the Final Fantasy gaming franchise, that kind of stuff. And we're basically opening with this precursor prologue of 100 and some odd years earlier, where there's these two factions, battling essentially these knights in armor, and there are demons being summoned and dragons being summoned, and we essentially see that there's this one chief dragon that's in chains and later freed, and seems to slaughter, the king of one of these two factions, jumping us ahead to, present day, where we're debuted to the two awesome main characters of the series, Favaro and Kaiser, respectively. We're not exactly sure what the relationship is between them, except to say that it is definitely a wholeheartedly adversarial one. They are both bounty hunters, and it seems like Favaro is always getting one-upsmanship on Kaiser, and he's ticked off about it. So Favaro is leading Kaiser on a merry chase across rooftops and on horseback. This entire scene playing out with this spindly spaghetti western-style music to amp up that vibe and all. And at some point, Favaro basically feints one way, goes another. He finds himself on top of this giant water wheel. Kaiser only just happens to barely notice this, loosens the water wheel from the side of the building. And because this entire city is on like a mountainside, this water wheel then goes careening down, the road down the hill. And they end up inadvertently and accidentally stopping these three thugs from kidnapping women for like a slave trade for their mob boss or whatever it is. The women get away very luckily. And as we follow these characters a bit later, we find that their journey, as they're mulling over having to go back to their boss empty-handed, is interrupted by this lightning-like explosion out of nowhere, depositing on the top of their carriage, which gets destroyed, chases off their horses, is this stark nude woman with these magical mystical powers of her own, very much obsessed with getting herself back to a place called Helheim. And this coincides, of course, later with the doings of Favaro, who we basically see goes after a bounty head in the form of this guy called Garth. And I love the fact that they've carried over that aesthetic of the card game elements of the story it's based on, because the way he ends up capturing these bounties are by turning them into cards. And then he goes to this guy who he's supposed to turn them into and get his money, this guy who thinks of himself as a god, and apparently the inside of his carriage is always different. We find he's a drunkard, he's got like a talking duck sidekick or whatever it is, and he only pays Favaro half of what the bounty was, and it turns out there's a reason for that. Apparently it was only one half of the bounty that was actually being sought that Favaro ended up catching. So basically he goes to this pub to spend his money, and he's telling all these tall tales and spinning this bravado of basically trying to, wine and dine these women and everything. Kaiser catches up to him, and it turns out the whole time this girl who basically showed up out of nowhere earlier in the episode has been overhearing his tall tales relating to his potentially going north to a place called Helheim. And we find out that it's like a snow-capped area to the north full of thugs and criminals and such like that. It's a hub of sorts of all of that stuff. So Favaro, as Kaiser approaches, kind of faints once again, sends the women after Kaiser so he can make his getaway. And this woman basically decked out now in regalia almost akin to the mages of the Final Fantasy franchise, calling back to that once again. She's basically obsessively asking him, can you help me get to Helheim? I need to get there. And they're accosted by the other half of that bounty that unfortunately Favaro did not catch earlier. The little brother of that guy, Garth was his name. This guy's name is Goss, and he summons this gigantic behemoth-like demon to basically take them out. And as this is unfolding, we see that this girl, whatever her name is, we still don't know as yet, she herself transforms into a demon of sorts, just has incredible powers, completely wipes the floor with this guy Goss, with this giant behemoth demon and everything like that. And just precursor to this, we had Favaro saying, you know what, I will definitely help you for love. I'll help you if you give me a kiss and all this kind of stuff. So we end up seeing him get slammed over the head with this giant barrel, and as he's basically going unconscious, the last thing he physically sees is this girl, now transformed back to normal, leaning in to kiss him. And it sets off this almost nightmarish vision of a dragon with molten lava sort of surrounding it, and flame and all this kind of stuff, and sulfur. And he wakes up out of it, and basically the next day he's got a sort of demon tail now. For whatever reason, maybe this girl has become like a symbiote to him or something like that. They are merged. Who knows exactly what's going on, but essentially he's got to get out of town before they come and hunt him down and all this stuff. And it was just a whirlwind of an episode. Mad fun, I gotta say. And yeah, as I said at the beginning of this video, I'm definitely on board by the end to stick with this series and see where it goes. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. If you caught the first episode of Shingeki no Bahamut Genesis, what you thought of it, were you wowed by it as I was? Either way, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts on it were. And yeah, otherwise, I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.